watched music. You've never watched music in the spoken word?
I wanted to a few times. Like, I've thought about it many times, especially before conference. I always think, I should just turn it on. And it just has not ever happened.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little hint as to when is a good time to watch music in the spoken word. Mornings are better with a warm beverage, even for Latter-day Saints. Meet Postum, the ideal coffee alternative and proud sponsor of This Week in Mormons podcast. Spot it on the coffee aisle at Smith's Grocery or at your local nearby store. Can't locate it? No worries. Order it at postum.com. Explore delicious recipes to tailor your Postum experience. Start your day off right with Postum. Welcome to This Week in Mormons, the Taffy edition, which is known as Tiffany and Friends for You. So this is your host tonight, Tiffany Hales, and I am here with one of my friends. I have invited my friend Lauren Lemons on the podcast tonight. Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks for having me.
So Lauren is, first of all, she's a longtime listener of the podcast. So the first question I'm going to ask you before we get into a little bit of details about you, how did you stumble across the podcast? How did you learn about it?
Well, it was because of you.
Okay.
So I'm sure Tiffany will say this in a minute, but my parents are in Tiffany's ward.
Yes.
And I can't remember what year it was, but my mom said that you had some very funny commentary on Pioneer Trek and that I should listen. And so I listened to it and I really liked it. And I just started listening. At first, I only listened to the ones that you were on. Yeah. And then I kind of gradually started listening to all of them.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Yes, as Lauren mentioned, her parents are in my ward. Her dad, it was my former bishop. He got released about a year ago. And I have to tell you, I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast, but I've said it at least to a lot of people. He was the best bishop I have ever had in my whole entire life. Oh, I'm pretty sure I've told him that. Anyway, he was he is an incredible man, and he was a really good bishop, and he had to be the bishop during COVID, and that was truly a completely thankless job. And I thought he handled it very well. COVID is one of those situations where you were never going to make everyone happy. So you just kind of had to do what you could do and not get too worked up about it. And I'm sure probably your mom has an opinion as to whether or not he got worked up about it, but he didn't, he let it kind of just let a lot of water just kind of roll off his back. So he's a great guy. I love your parents.
I like him too.
Good. All right. Well, Lauren, tell the listeners a little bit about you since they've obviously never met you before.
Okay. So I grew up here. I grew up in this ward that Tiffany lives in now.
Yes. Although it wasn't always the Eagle 7th ward, was it, when you grew up?
For a little while. Yeah, it was Eagle 1st. And then it was Eagle 7th. And then for a little while, it wasn't in my ward and it was Eagle 4th.
Yes.
And it was a different part of town. But for the most part, you was with this neighborhood.
Exactly.
And so I left for BYU when I was 18, and then I didn't live here for about 18 years. So I met my husband at BYU. We went to UCLA for dental school. Then he joined the military. So we lived in Washington and North Carolina and Georgia, and we are back here now.
That
hopefully
is
forever.
Awesome. So military family, you guys did a lot of moving around. Mm-hmm. Tell me, what was that like? I mean, you have no control over where you go, really. Mm-hmm. The military tells you where you're going to go, what you're going to do, all of that fun stuff. So what was that like? And how did your association with the church maybe help or hinder that?
Mm-hmm. So I liked it a lot at first.
Okay.
I was kind of eager to get out of Idaho when I was a kid. And so or a young adult, I guess. So I liked getting to live in different places, and we did a lot of travel wherever we lived. So we explored the South a lot, and I loved living in Washington and camping in Washington. So that was fun. Towards the end, and as our kids got older, we were less excited about moving all the time, and it just got a little bit harder each time. So we were ready to be done by the time we were done, but it was really fun for a while to get to move and travel. And I think the church was definitely helpful just because you have people that especially in the South, because I lived in North Carolina and Georgia, people will ask you as soon as you move in, have y'all found a church yet? And we're like, yeah.
I've heard that they are way into religion there.
Yes. And so we were we could always say, yes, we found a church. And I will say too, people are really excited to have new members there because there are not as many people to help with callings and to fill roles. So it was very welcoming.
That's great.
I would say.
Now, your last duty station wasn't it in the Atlanta area? Were you in Atlanta? What part of Georgia were you in?
We were in Augusta.
Augusta. Okay. I knew it started with an A.
Yeah. Atlanta was a couple hours away.
Okay. So growing up here in Idaho in this very dry climate, how did you adjust to that humidity? I've never been to the South in the summertime, but I have heard the humidity in the South in the summertime is just killer.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of deal with it. Took a lot of cold showers. Didn't go out. We would spend a lot of time outside, like early in the morning and then later in the evening. The middle of the day was off limits. Yeah. And you look at it and it's, it's like 85 degrees, but it feels so oppressive and like thick. So 85 degrees here in Idaho in a dry heat. Are you like, whoa, give me a jacket. I'm a little cold. Well, my kids have started complaining, it'll be 80 degrees and they go, oh, it's so hot. It's like, do you guys even remember what it used to be like? So.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that brings us to your kids. Tell us about your children.
So I have 3.
Okay.
I have one who's 11. I have an 11-year-old boy. He's a deacon. He's one of the youngest deacons because his birthday is at the very end of November. Okay. And then I have an 8-year-old boy. Okay. And I have a 6-year-old girl.
Okay. And I remember your girl was born, like I think the day your dad was called as bishop, or very near in.
Yeah. As he was being sustained, I was giving birth. It was literally the same time. So he would ask me, like, how old is she now? Because he couldn't wait for her to be 5 so he could be done.
He was trunky at the end, but again, I really don't blame him because he had to deal with a lot of really hard stuff as a bishop. Mm-hmm. We had some hard things in addition to COVID, we had some hard things going on in our ward during his tenure as bishop. And I think that's another reason I just have so much respect for him is because I mean, what he had to deal with in that compact 5-year period was, a normal person would have taken 10 or 15 years as a bishop to handle all the kind of crazy issues he had to deal with. So
he's a decision maker.
He is.
He's not someone to deliberate.
No.
So, I mean, he tries to do it wisely, but, he's a quick decision maker. So,
which again is probably one of the reasons why he was the perfect person for the job. And your dad is a storyteller.
He is.
And Lauren is a storyteller as well. So I know exactly where Lauren gets this from. So Lauren, you do a lot of writing. Tell the listeners a little bit about what you're writing, about what got you into writing, what you write, because your background is nursing. You have a nursing background.
I'm all over the place.
Okay.
I cannot make up my mind. But yeah, I just grew up reading a lot. I love to read. It's kind of my favorite thing to do. And I spent a little bit of time as an English major, but we're talking about my dad a lot. My dad really encouraged me to make sure that I was picking a major that I felt like I could work.
Yes.
Which, it's funny now because I work in writing now. Yeah. But at the time, he was really worried and he talked to me a lot about my options. Yeah. And so I wound up leaving the English major and switching into various things, but ultimately it was nursing. I had a neuroscience degree in there as well. Took me a while to figure out what I was doing.
That's okay.
So I worked as a nurse while my husband was in graduate school, and then was ready to be done working full time when he started getting paid. But after a few years, I was looking for something to do and
something for Lauren. It wasn't mom duty.
Yeah, and I think just being a mom, I really wanted to process some of the experiences that I had as a mother, and I had found some blogs about motherhood. So I started writing and submitting work to those blogs. And then over time, I just was networking with people and I found some different clients who were willing to pay me to edit or create content. And so now it's part-time, but that is what I do for work now.
It's awesome. Well, I've read several things that you have written on the blog space, Coffee and Crumbs. One that you wrote that really, really resonated with me is because I think it resonates with all women. You were talking about, looking at your daughter right after she was born and just looking at being grateful for your body that was able to produce this beautiful child, even though, none of us look like we should be our runway models
how
or
we want to.
How we want to.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the standard that we are using to measure is maybe not the best standard and we should use other standards. I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, she articulated every single thing I've ever felt about that. So I really appreciated that. And I have your book here. So this is a book. Your mother gave it to me for Christmas last year called Advent of Disciples, a 12-day Advent study. Why don't you tell our listeners what this is and how they can use it?
Okay, so you can't really buy it anymore,
unfortunately.
Gosh, so you might have to come borrow it from Tiffany.
Okay.
But I co-wrote it. So at the time, I was working for a company called Work and Wonder that was bought out by a different company called Good News Brand. And so that's why it's not sold anymore.
Got it. Okay.
But with my co-writer, Tess Frame is her name, we wrote just a little meditation on several different disciples and had some reflection questions following up with it.
Well, and your mom gave it to me for Christmas because I think wasn't it kind of designed to maybe do it leading up to Christmas?
Yeah, we kind of wanted it to be like Christmas or Easter. So it's that like green that could go either way.
Exactly. But you know what? I mean, honestly, the stories in here and what you ask people to ponder, you could do it anytime. In fact, it was kind of funny because just the other day, my husband had a brief minute and I think I was in here in my office doing something and he went to the bookshelf and he actually pulled this off the bookshelf and started thumbing through it. So anyway, Lauren is a great writer. We hope to see you continue that work, but we brought you here tonight to talk about stories written by others, not by you. Exactly. So let's jump into just our first news story tonight. The first one that we're going to cover tonight involves a youth group out of southern Utah. So Sevier County, I don't recall exactly where Sevier County is at. I just know that it's south of Provo because I only know everything that's like north of Provo. Anyway, so south of Provo, there was a youth group from the Salina stake of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There were 100 teens between the ages of 14 and 17. It was both boys and girls, plus their adult leaders. So they are out on this hike. And what happens is there is a pretty significant rainstorm. And so rain starts to dump on them and there's kind of puddles of water everywhere. And in addition to the rain, some lightning strikes. So the lightning doesn't strike the kids per se, but it hits the ground where the water is and it travels through the water because as we know, water, conducts electricity and 7 of these youth, approximately 50 of the youth felt the shock of the lightning. 7 of them had some sort of medical concern due to the electrocution. 7 were transported to Salina by ambulances from Emery and Sevier counties. There were 2 of them that had some serious symptoms, and they had to go by medical helicopter to Primary Children's Hospital in Lehi. So at this time, none of the injuries were expected to be life-threatening. And so everybody's grateful that it was kind of just this really freak accident and that it's really a miracle that they didn't have anything that was more life-threatening. But it really illustrates the dangers when you are in the mountains, especially in the summertime, of those lightning storms that can come up so quickly.
Yes.
And that you sometimes there's opportunities to take shelter and sometimes there's not. So anyway, that was our first story. We're glad that none of those youth were seriously injured.
Yeah,
so
I have an ancestor who lived at the time of Joseph Smith, who died by being struck by lightning.
Are you kidding?
That was all I could think about when I saw that story. I mean, many years ago.
Yeah. All right. So our next 2 stories are music stories, which I asked if you would cover because you are very musical. You sing in a local group called the Musettes, which I think is awesome. So I am someone who appreciates music. I am not musical, but I can appreciate music. So let's start with the first one that you have.
All right. So this first one is 3 interesting facts about Come Thou Fount. And it talks about the author's backstory. And this hymn is it's been more interesting to us lately because it's in that new batch of hymns.
Yes.
I'm so sad because we were singing it as a closing hymn a couple weeks ago, but I'm the primary chorister and I had to leave to set up my lesson. So I didn't get to sing it yet.
So that is very sad.
I know. I was like, should I stay? And I just needed the time to set up. But this author who wrote the lyrics is named Robert Robinson, and it was written in 1758. And he had a difficult life. He was an indentured servant to a barber, starting from when he was pretty young, age 15. And he lost his father at a young age. He lived in poverty, but he met with a fortune teller who told him he would live to meet his children and grandchildren. And so he decided to start pursuing religion because of that experience with the fortune teller.
Which is crazy.
I know, we kind of discourage that most of the time.
But then he ends up trying on all these different religions for size.
Yeah, so he was a minister for various denominations, and perhaps that was why he wrote the line "prone to wander."
Yes,
because he was exploring.
He wandered a lot.
Yes. So that was first published in 1759.
Yeah. So this is an old hymn. Mm-hmm. That is crazy to think that at least the lyrics, because I think it's had several different tunes that it's been written that have accompanied the lyrics, so to speak. The one that we sing, what is it? Is it Notting?
I think it's
Nettleton.
Yes.
So it's crazy to think that those lyrics were originally published as a hymn in 1759.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and it was in the original Nauvoo hymnal as well.
Yes.
In 1841.
Courtesy of Emma.
Yes.
Emma Smith.
In 1985, they took it out because they thought people didn't like it.
I know.
Which is funny to think about. But.
And it was in the 1950 hymnal. Mm-hmm. And the 1950 hymnal, you've probably never seen this. But I grew up in the 1950 hymnal because when the 85 one came out, I was a junior in high school. Mm-hmm. And so it was a blue book that was about 2/3 the size. It was the same thickness as our current hymnal, but it was a blue book, and Come Thou Fount was in there. And I remember singing it as a child. And then, of course, they took it out. And it was probably, 10 or 12 years later, I was in a music store with my ex-husband because he was very into organs and things like that. And whoever the salesman was that was an organ that was dealing with my ex-husband, he sat down and he started playing Come Thou Fount. And I had not heard that in years. And I was just like, I recognized that. And I didn't know what it was that I recognized. I just knew that I recognized it. And again, from singing it as a kid. So, but as the article says, Brother Wilberg, what did he do what did he do to raise that hymn's popularity?
So in 1994, Mac Wilberg arranged a version of Come Thou Fount, and it was performed by the Brigham Young University Choirs and Orchestra.
Yeah, for a Thanksgiving special.
Yep.
Yeah,
which you've talked about the Thanksgiving. Well, I guess that's the Tab Cats.
Yeah. But that's when Mac Wilberg was still with BYU. But when he thought, oh, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, they're just old and stuffy. They have no pizzazz. And then he got called, and he was like, well, I guess I'll have to make some pizzazz.
Yeah. I'm curious about what the new hymnal will be like. Just
exactly
because I've only had the green hymnal. I was born in the 80s.
Okay,
so I've only had the green hymnal. And I sometimes play the piano at a different church.
Okay.
So I actually play with the musettes. I don't sing with the musettes. I'm their accompanist.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought you sung with them. I didn't realize you played with them. Well, awesome for you then.
But that church that we practice at a church called Church of the Brethren.
Yes.
And they have asked me occasionally to fill in for their
accompanist.
And so it's been interesting to look through their hymnal and just see some of the
similarities.
They have 2 different ones at their church. But anyway, I'm sure it's different everywhere. But
that's
interesting to look at.
That's very cool. Sure. Well, they say that the new hymnal is going to have, I think, 500 songs in it. And how many do we have in our current one? It's
low 300s.
Low 300s. So that's an additional 200 more songs. I'm like, first of all, I question, how is that going to fit in the little thing where the books go right now? Because I can't imagine that they're going to make the print smaller. No. So
some of those pages are like the scripture, how the scriptures have those really thin.
Yeah, maybe if they do that, the kids will be ripping those pages out left and right.
I feel like my kids have ripped out many pages already on accident.
So I'm really curious what this is going to look like when it's physically in print, or if there's just going to be a few copies laying around and the church is going to say, get on your phones, everybody.
Yeah, our chorister or our music leader has printed out and put in page protectors so we did the last 3 weeks, we did new songs, and I don't know if we're doing them, continue to do them, because she hasn't made an announcement, but she just sets them on each pew. And she collects them after.
Okay. Oh, that is a good way to do that. Yeah, that is a really good way to do that. I like that idea.
Yeah, she's been very proactive about it.
Okay. All right. Well, I thought that was fun to get a little background on that hymn, because I do have to say I really love and connect with that hymn. So too. I'm glad it's back.
And I didn't realize it was written so long ago.
Yeah, neither did I. So
yes.
Okay, on to our next musical story.
So our next one is about the new music and the spoken word host. So his name is Derek Porter, and he is replacing Lloyd Newell. And Lloyd Newell was there for 34 years.
34 years.
That is almost as old as me.
I was going to try and hop on today because I last Sunday was kind of crazy, and so I didn't get a chance to. Sometimes in the afternoon, we'll flip on YouTube and catch music in the spoken word on the YouTube channel. And I was going to try and get to it today because I wanted to hear what this new guy's voice sounded like, but I didn't get to it. And I'm assuming with your 3 kids, you probably didn't get to it either.
I have to confess, I have never watched music.
You've never watched music on the spoken word?
I wanted to a few times. I've thought about it many times, especially before conference. I always think, I should just turn it on. And it just has not ever happened.
Okay. I'm going to give you a little hint as to when is a good time to watch music in the spoken word. What time's your church?
It's at 1:30.
Okay. So see, this is perfect. It comes on at 9:30 on Sunday mornings. And then, of course, they repeat it on their YouTube channel. I am pretty sure that if you turned on YouTube on Sunday morning for that half hour, this is when I don't have 9 a.m. church. This is how I get my music in the spoken word. I literally put it on as background music and noise on Sunday morning because I feel like it helps set the tone a little bit. So that's what you need to do is just set an alarm on your phone for 9:30 to flip on the YouTube. And get some Jesus in your life. Get some Jesus with music.
It'll help my kids not argue in the morning.
Well, I can't make any promises there, but maybe it'll at least give you some peace.
There we go. Just focus on myself.
Exactly. Exactly. Go, I can't fix them. I've tried.
Yes. So Brother Newell is a mission leader for Los Angeles, California, which is a place I love because I lived there for 4 years during my husband's graduate school. So,
okay, did you love the LA temple? I love the architecture of the LA temple.
Much. Yeah, that temple is very special to me.
Oh, that's very cool.
I love that.
Sorry, we had to just diverge when you said that because I'm like, every time I think of LA and Mission, I think of just the beautiful. I think the LA temple is so beautiful.
We lived only about 10 minutes from it, so it was wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yes. So, Brother Porter, Derek Porter, our new host, spoke about joy in his first broadcast. And he said that he talked about Jesus Christ and his apostles sharing the glad tidings of the gospel and that they brought joy to people's hearts. And he also said he prayed to be equal to the unique opportunity to be the next or to take the torch from Brother Newell. That
has to be so intimidating. This guy hosted music in the spoken word for 34 years. He's beloved, and now you're taking his place. I can't even imagine.
Well, and people get spicy about things.
They do.
So I'm in this Music Callings Facebook group.
Okay.
Because I've had a lot of music callings. I'm in primary right now. And people had a lot of things to say about the new hymns. They were not all positive. People were getting their feelings
hurt.
So it's interesting to see how people react.
So what kind of comments did you hear or did you read in this Facebook group? Anything you recall?
Some people didn't like the arrangements. They just thought the arrangements could have been nicer. I know with some of the primary songs, I don't know enough about like the technicalities of music to know what officially categorized as something as a hymn.
Okay.
But some people felt that the songs included were not true hymns, some of them. Like Gethsemane was one that came up.
So, I heard that from another music person.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I know a music person that that's in that group. So.
I don't know if it was
she was a positive person.
Okay.
but yeah, it was just interesting to see how upset some people were that their expectations had not been met.
Interesting.
Change is hard.
So the music people have a lot of strong feelings on this.
There are many strong feelings about everything.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Brother Porter, we wish you the best of luck as you take this helm on. You have one under your belt, so that's got to feel good. I would assume the first one is probably the most nerve-wracking, and it will get easier and easier as time goes on.
I will start listening, so he'll be the one that I know.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Like I said, set an alarm on your phone for 9:30 on Sunday morning. You just flip that on, have it as background, and then you'll feel good about doing something churchy before church.
Yes. Nice to get out of bed.
Exactly. I know, but again, it's on the YouTube channel, even if you miss the live recording. So you could turn it on at 10:30 and still feel churchy.
There we go.
Okay. All right. The next story is BYU Engineering hosts a Lego building competition. And I just thought that this was so cool. So what the BYU Engineering Department is trying to do is they are trying to engage some of their alumni. And of course, their alumni are spread all across America, like all good BYU alumni. Some stay in the belly of the church membership, Idaho, Oregon, or Idaho, Utah, Arizona, but a lot go forth, just like you and your husband did in the mission field, so to speak. So it's really difficult to get the alumni back there to do alumni related things. And so they came up with this idea of let's do a Lego building contest. And rather than like do it at BYU, they set out some parameters for their Lego building contest. And they were encouraging their alumni to get together and create these Lego creations. And so here were the rules for the contest. The creation must be mostly constructed using Legos or compatible interlocking blocks. So if you don't like Legos, that's fine. You can use a competitor. The creation must be built between June 17th and June 28th. So today is June 28th when we're recording. So we're probably a little late to enter the competition. We've only got a few more hours left and neither one of us are engineers. The pieces used in the creation can originate from an unbuilt kit. Participants should try and incorporate BYU or engineering elements. There is only one entry allowed for each person/team. The winner will be decided based on public votes through the BYU Engineering social media, such as Facebook, Instagram, and X. And so if you or your team wins, then you get this really cool building that is a replica of BYU's engineering building. That I thought was so cool. That's what the winning team or person is going to get in addition to bragging rights. So it was really cool because the article talks about there were a couple of engineering groups. For example, a gentleman by the name of Dan McGuire. He works for the firm Jones and DeMille Engineering. They have several BYU engineering alums there. So a group of employees from multiple offices planned to meet together and build an entry for the competition. So I thought, what a good way to like network with your fellow BYU alums. It could honestly be a good missionary opportunity too. If you've got, some engineers that you work with that like to play with Legos to say, hey, we're entering this Lego competition for our university. Come help us build this. And so I looked today to see if they had posted any of the creations that have been submitted so far, because I was really curious. Are they posting them as they come in, or are they going to post them all at once? There was nothing on their Instagram today. And so I am assuming probably Monday, since the deadline is today, that probably Monday they will start posting these on their social media sites so people can view them. I don't know what their Facebook site is, but their Instagram site is at BYU Engineering, one word. And so I love Lego bricks. I played with them as a kid. My kids played with them. So I am really curious. I followed BYU Engineering on Instagram because I want to get online and see these creations because it amazes me what people make out of Legos. I lack the creativity and the engineering skills to do anything but follow the directions, but it fascinates me to see what people do.
Yeah, I'll have to show my boys the Instagram because they love to build Legos.
Your boys will love that.
They will be very interested in.
Well, and especially if it has to have a BYU theme, because with both you and your husband being BYU alums, I assume they're little BYU fans.
They are. So my second bachelor's degree is from the U, which is a source of shame to my husband. But BYU is where my heart is.
Fair enough. That's where you met your husband.
That's where I got my first degree.
That's right. Okay. All right. So our next one, we have a really cool one about some missionaries in American Samoa.
Yes, this was such an interesting story. So this brother and sister were adopted by different families when they were young. And so they did not grow up together. They
were both born in American Samoa. And she stayed there, and he ended up going to Utah with the family that adopted him. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
You're totally fine. So they had met once before when the son, his name is Micah, was 8, and the sister was 11. And I am probably going to butcher her name. It's Fa'afe'e, maybe? I should have looked it up.
Yeah, you're not doing any better than me.
It looks like a really beautiful name, but I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. But
her middle name is Anita. Yes. I think we'll call her Anita because we can pronounce Anita.
We know how to say that one.
And I don't want to butcher her last name, which is maybe Misulu. Yeah. Sorry.
We'll say Anita. Sorry, Sister Anita.
We'll call you Sister Anita.
Yes. But so the adoptive mother of the son, Micah, she saw on social media that his biological sister, was already on the same mission that he was also called on. So when he started his mission, he was a little nervous to serve with her, but excited to join together. And when they saw each other, they just gave each other a big hug, which caused some people to side-eye them a little bit because they didn't understand the situation. But
I need to make a correction. They were both born in American Samoa, but they are not serving in American Samoa. They are serving in the Samoa Apai mission. So that's the part of Samoa that is not an American territory, and it's like a completely different island.
Okay, and I don't think I even knew that there was division.
The only reason I knew that is we had a missionary from American Samoa that served here in Eagle, and our family got to know him really well. And his mother was a lawyer over there in American Samoa. And he called me his blonde-haired, blue-eyed mother because I acted just like his mother. And I've met his mother, and we are two peas in a pod.
Oh, I love that.
So that's the only reason I know that trivial fact.
Yes. So they are not serving in American Samoa, but different.
Yes.
A different part. And it says that they keep in contact. They see each other sometimes at missionary meetings, and that their rediscovered connections strengthen their service. So I loved, let's see, I'm trying to find this quote that I read that I loved. She said, for Sister Anita, serving with her brother has been nothing short of a tender mercy. The Lord knows us individually, personally, and wholeheartedly, she said. He knew me best by calling my brother to the mission at the same time. And I just love that, they have their families that they were raised in. It says that...
and they're sealed to both of their families.
Yeah, the Elder Beck said, his mother says, I know our son is ours and we've been sealed, but he still has this special bond with his biological sister. Yeah. It's so special that they get to explore that and serve together.
Yeah, I thought that was just such a sweet story and just a good example, just like the mother said, of the hand that, the Lord plays in our lives in significant and in big and little ways.
Yeah, and just the inspiration. Yeah. Because their names aren't the same.
No.
They don't have the same last names. It's not like the brethren could
would
say,
know.
These two should maybe serve together.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, it is time to move on to some Olympic coverage. Anybody who is a longtime twin listener knows Tiffany loves some Olympics. I live for it every 2 years. We get either the winter or the summer, and we are headed into the Summer Games in Paris. And right now, Team USA is in the thick of trials and seeing who's going to make the team. And there's several members of the church that have made the team. And so we're going to talk about the steeplechase. We've talked in the past about the 2 marathon runners who have made the team. We're going to talk about the steeplechase because they had the USA Track and Field Olympic trials are currently still going on. They started over a week ago. So the first story is about the men's steeplechase. And there was a runner by the name of Kenneth Rooks, and he was expected to qualify for the Olympics. Many have heard his story because last year, almost a year ago, I think it was at the NCAA finals, he had tripped in an early lap and he got up and he continued to run. And not only did he trip and fall, he finished the race first. He was interviewed on one of the church podcasts about it. And he said, that morning I thought, what am I going to do if I trip? Because they go over these hurdles and it's, and into water. And so it's very easy to trip. And he made the decision that morning, if I trip, I'm going to get up. So that when it happened, he didn't even have to pause and think about it. And he got up and he was able to get back on pace and he won the race. And it was just really inspiring. And it was also pretty metaphorical, I think, for how we deal with things in our life, that if we make decisions about how we're going to face challenges before we face those challenges, we're going to be so much more prepared in that moment to be able to deal with that challenge. So he finished first place in the steeplechase. But what's really interesting is the third place finisher. The third place finisher was a gentleman by the name of James Corrigan, and he is a teammate of Kenneth Rooks. He trains with Kenneth Rooks. He knows Kenneth Rooks. He is also, I believe he is a BYU student as well, or at least he was a BYU student. He is obviously a member of the church. No one expected him to finish third. This was a complete surprise that he finished third. And generally speaking, the top 3 finishers get to go to the Olympics. However, because this is the Olympics, there's a little wrinkle here. Nobody finished in Olympic qualifying time. So if you finish in the top 3 and you finish in Olympic qualifying time, or even if you finish like 5th and you finish in Olympic qualifying time, you can guarantee yourself a spot to the Olympics. So nobody finished with Olympic qualifying time, which means they have to look to the top 36 in the world. And so the top 36 in the world get to go. And they gauge that top 36 in the world from July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2024. Now, currently, Kenneth Rooks is ranked. Where is he ranked? I can't remember where he's ranked. He's in the top 36. And so even though he didn't have an Olympic qualifying finishing time, everybody is convinced he's likely to go. It's still a little up in the air for James Corrigan. So before I get to the James Corrigan story about how is James Corrigan going to make it to the Olympics, what is his pathway there, we're going to pause for a moment and we're going to talk about the women steeplechasers. Because there is a woman steeplechaser by the name of Courtney Waymount. And again, she is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She's an excellent steeplechase runner. She came out of BYU. BYU just has this incredible steeplechase program. I had an article on that, but we're not going to use it tonight. I'm going to save it for a couple weeks. I'm going to do a lot of Olympic stories in a couple weeks, and I'm going to save that Steeplechase University story for a couple of weeks down the road. Anyway, so Courtney Waymount finishes second, and again, I don't believe she met the Olympic qualifying time, but she's definitely going with where she's ranked in the world. I watched her run both of her races, both the first heat that qualified her for the finals and the finals. The finals were last night. My husband and I had the presidential debates on for about 2 minutes, and we both said, we can't stomach this anymore. And I said, let's turn on the Olympic track and field trials. It was a much better choice.
More uplifting.
Much more uplifting. So I got to see Courtney run. So she's headed to the Olympics as well. Now we are going to get back to James Corrigan because this story just came out today and it is so fascinating, his pathway to the Olympics, hopefully. So, like I said, nobody expected him to go to the Olympics. He's just kind of this rising star that rose super quickly. So he hasn't run a lot of races this year. And so he has to either achieve an Olympic qualifying time or enough to move him up in the rankings in the world so that he's in the top 36. So after he finishes third, he's got this coach. His coach's name is Ed Eyestone. And Ed Eyestone coaches not only Kenneth Rooks and James Corrigan, he also coaches the two marathon runners. Connor Mans is one of them. I'm trying to remember the other guy's name. His last name is Young. I've talked about him a lot, so I'm kind of embarrassed I don't remember his name. But he's a BYU coach, and he's just an incredible distance running coach. And so minutes after James Corrigan finishes, they realize he's not going to get to go to the Olympics because he's not in 1 through 36 and he hasn't had an Olympic qualifying time. We are at, this happens last Sunday. So last Sunday was, I can't remember what the date was. I think the 21st was last Sunday, 22nd, somewhere in there, 23rd. He only has until the 30th of June to get himself to the Olympics. So as soon as the race was done, Ed Eyestone, the coach, begins making phone calls and consulting agents because they were like, we need to get him into another race to see if he can improve his time to get him either into the top 36 or to get an Olympic qualifying time. So they start calling around. There's no races in Europe they can get him to in the next 7 days. The best that they can do is there is a race in Pennsylvania called the Penn Relays. And the only problem is the Penn Relays didn't have the steeplechase.
Oh, no.
So don't worry. They got this covered. So what they did is, as luck would have it, Aaron Robinson is the meet director for the Penn Relays. He is the grandson of a BYU coach, a legendary BYU coach named Clarence Robinson, and the son of a former BYU coach, Mark. And Mark was one of Eyestone's former athletes. So Eyestone calls the guy who's in charge of the Penn Relays and says, I got to get the steeplechase added to your thing. I got this guy. I got to get him qualified. And so Aaron Robinson says, hey, no problem. We'll add the steeplechase. So they add it as the very last event. So they're going to run it at 8 p.m. on Saturday night, which is actually good because the East Coast is suffering a heat wave right now. And so that will be the coolest conditions for Brother Corrigan to make this race. But in addition to that, not only are they going to have him show up at the race, they've got to have some people pace him. So his teammate, Kenneth Rooks, said, look, I'm going to be the rabbit for Corrigan. I am going to set the pace. And so he will pace at least 6 of the race's 7.5 laps. So Coach Eyestone made another call to recruit a gentleman by the name of Dan Michalaski, and he is an Air Force Academy runner, and he'd competed in the first round of the steeplechase trials but failed to advance. And so I guess they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. It says the boosters did. And so he's going to go and he's going to be Rooks will still be running the whole thing, but Rooks won't be setting the pace. He will set the pace for at least the first 1 to 1.5 laps. And then Kenneth will kick in. And that, I guess I don't know much about the steeplechase, but I guess having someone there to help you set the pace helps you run faster. And so what they are hoping is his best time that he has run so far, meaning James Corrigan, is 8 minutes, 21 seconds. 8 minutes, 15 seconds is a qualifying time. Okay. So he's got a long ways to go. But if he can at least get his time to 8 minutes, 20 seconds, there is a good possibility that he might then move his ranking up to number 36 and be able to go. So we are recording this on a Friday night. 24 hours from now, we should know if James Corrigan is going to go. But I loved this story. And this is what I love about the Olympics is it was just an example of the coach and Kenneth Rooks and everybody just looking at the big picture. It wasn't about Kenneth Rooks. It was about how can I get my teammate there? What can I do to help my teammate? Kenneth Rooks is exhausted. He's ran 2 steeplechases in 2 days. And now he has to prepare for the Olympics, but he's like, nope, I'm going to go help my buddy. And so those are the kind of heartwarming stories that I just absolutely love from the Olympics. So next time I record, hopefully I will have an update on James Corrigan and whether or not he's punched his ticket to Paris.
No, I didn't realize just how the numbers all.
It's complicated. Yeah.
I think I thought coaches just picked people or something.
Well, and every sport has a different athletic group that governs them. And so qualifying for the Olympic teams is pursuant to your governing sport. For example, I was watching the gymnastics qualifiers tonight before you came, and you could end up, in the top 6 and still not qualify for the Olympic team if the coach thinks, person number 7 is going to be a better addition to the team than you. And I don't even know if they take how many gymnasts they take, but that happened to Michaela Skinner.
I remember that.
A couple years ago. I mean, she ended up making it, but the year before she hadn't, and she should have. So yeah, it is very complicated, but I'm hoping the next time I record that we will have a good sense, because that will be a couple weeks before the Olympics, of all of the members of the church who are going to the Olympics, and be able to kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, see what's happening there.
Okay. All right. The next story. This is one that I thought was so fascinating. There is a new prison ministry app on the website for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it offers guiding principles for ministering to incarcerated individuals and their families. And I thought that this was so cool. And they have some stories in there. There's one lady, her name is Portia Lauder, and she said, I spent 4.5 years in federal prison. I know that the way I was loved and supported made a huge difference. When you can see somebody and recognize their divine potential, maybe even before they can see it, you can make a profound impact in their lives. And the website says, if you are called to serve in this situation, your life is going to change forever, and you're really going to understand the atonement of Jesus Christ even better. And it also talks about there's something uniquely satisfying and sanctifying about ministering to others who cannot do things for themselves. And I just thought, what a cool way for the church to again, kind of bring Jesus into this and help those people who are there in kind of that really unfortunate situation, and help them to kind of come and have a relationship with their Savior.
Yeah. And Portia Lauder has been a really big advocate for reaching out to incarcerated people. So we actually...
Oh, I didn't know you knew who... I had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, tell me what you know about her.
This magazine is not in print anymore, but when I worked at Work and Wonder, we had a magazine, a quarterly magazine.
Okay.
And so I did not work with her. Our other editor did, but we had an article that Portia Lauder helped us write about being in prison.
Oh.
And so I just started to notice, I would notice her name because I really loved her article. And she often posts and shares about helping people in prison. So
now that she's out of prison, does she still continue that outreach to people who are in prison?
Yeah. So since she was out of prison by the time I became familiar with her. I don't know when exactly it was, but yeah, I think that is sort of her passion, is ministering to people in prison. So.
Well, and it doesn't say, but it kind of now makes me wonder if she helped the church develop this app on their website to say, this is what people who are in prison need. And last time I recorded with Ariane, I talked about out here at the Boise Penitentiary, there is a bishop out there by the name of Bishop Wrigley, and he's actually been serving out there for 10 years to those inmates. And I think that tells you about his love for those inmates, and that's what he's getting from that more so than maybe what even he's giving to make that kind of a commitment.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, great thing that the church is doing.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. Before we get into Mormons behaving badly, let's talk about our last story, which you have. And Kurt Frankham sent me the link this week to this movie trailer.
Yes.
And then I promptly sent it to you. So I'm going to let you talk about it.
So interesting. So this is a new movie that is starring Hugh Grant called Heretic. And it is about 2 sister missionaries that come to this man played by Hugh Grant's house, and he basically kidnaps them.
Yes.
And it says that it is spine-chilling psychological horror, and they are forced to prove their faith by the diabolical Mr. Reed. And if you watch the trailer, there's this bird's eye view, and it's like a labyrinth or something that they have to get out of. So I have so many thoughts about
Okay, well, please share your thoughts.
I mean, I feel like I'm just all over the place because there's so many directions. But first of all, just the title heretic, it makes me wonder, who is the heretic?
Exactly.
Is he trying to get them to say...
And you can't tell from the trailer.
Yeah, there's one scene where he's writing like belief and disbelief.
Yeah.
But what I wonder is if he is like a disenchanted ex-church member.
Yeah.
And if that is why he has like set up this cat and mouse game. And then it also made me wonder the people that wrote and directed the film, if they were members of the church. So I tried to find that out and I could not see anything that indicated that they were. They're like a team that has done a few movies together. Okay. And I couldn't find anything to indicate that they were members.
Well, I'm glad you went down that rabbit hole because I hadn't.
Well, so the other thing that it has me thinking about is just like who gets to tell these stories.
Yes.
Because I feel like we kind of have two extremes of like art or stories about members of the church.
Yes.
And there's the very sanitized, like Deseret book.
Yes.
Faith promoting, like all positive. And then there's the very sensational, like Disenchanted, a lot of like, memoirs, like Educated by Tara Westover, which I think was a great book, but she wasn't positive about the church or...
Well, and there's been several documentaries that have been released on Netflix and Hulu that have not been particularly positive to the church.
Yeah, which is like sometimes hard to watch because you want to defend it. But I also struggle with the very, very overarchingly positive where it's like, are we being honest about like what experiences are like and what struggles are like? So I get excited when I see something about the church just because I'm like, well, is this like I would love to see more books and movies that just have LDS people in it.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily like the journey to faith or the journey out of faith. Yeah. Like, I'm like, we all have varied lives and things just happen to us. And I have my own interest in this because I'm like, doing my own writing and fiction, coming up with fictional stories where I feel the most authentic writing LDS characters. Yes. But I don't know what box I would fit in because it's not the Deseret book and it's not the like scandalous thing either. So I feel like this is going to wind up being a scandalous thing, but I wish it wasn't because I do think it's interesting to think about like, this is just a scary story about these two missionaries that happen to walk into this scary situation. But I feel like it is going to wind up being sort of condemning the church in some way. But
that is my concern as well. And the reason it's my concern as well is, first of all, in the opening scene in the trailer that they have, the sister missionaries are talking to each other, and whoever wrote this has at least spent some time around sister missionaries because the dialogue and how they were talking was so spot on accurate.
Just the cadence of the voice.
Exactly. So spot on accurate. And so then they go knock on Hugh Grant's door, and it's hard to see Hugh Grant as a villain because all of the movies I've ever seen him in, he's been
like the leading man.
He's the leading man in a rom-com. So that's messing with my mind. And he invites them into the house and then they get locked in and they can't get out. And so again, I wonder how this is going to play out. We don't know, but is it, as the writers develop these sister missionary characters, are they going to stay true to how the sister missionary character would actually respond in that situation, or are they going to take a lot of Hollywood license?
Yes.
If they stay true to how a sister missionary character would respond, then I probably will be able to stomach this a little more. But if they take a lot of Hollywood license, that's going to be hard for me.
Yes. And I feel like sometimes people get hung up on one little quirk.
Yes.
And like, I did not actually watch The Banner of Heaven, but I read some of the commentary on it and listened to some podcasts. And I know like just the way they used like the name Heavenly Father, like they say like, oh, Heavenly Father knows or whatever. And I was like, people don't say that. Like, that's not, like, I don't know where God, that, but they had it in their head that like, we don't say God, we only say Heavenly Father. And it's just like, if you talk to a couple members, that they could have cleared that up really fast for you.
Exactly.
Just little details like that, I think, are easy to miss.
Well, and it just came to my mind, the Saratov approach, those missionaries were kidnapped. Of course, that was based on a true story. Mm-hmm. But again, the response of those missionaries was consistent with how I would think a missionary would respond in that situation.
And I think that was made by a member of the church.
It was made by a member of the church. So this movie is released November 15th. My birthday. Maybe I'll tell Darren.
Let's go.
Let's go. Actually, no, I'm going to read the reviews before I decide if I want to go. But we will have a link to the trailer in our show notes, and you can look at the trailer and decide what you think. So
I'm definitely curious.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. We are done with our news stories, so we're going to move on to our next segment, which is Mormons behaving badly. So I don't really have the Mormons have been behaving well because I don't really have any new Mormon behaving badly stories, and I haven't for a while. So kudos to you Mormons out there who are not behaving badly. But I do have just a couple of interesting things of note. There was a documentary that was released on Amazon called Shiny Happy People. And it was all about the Duggars and the church that the Duggar family belonged to. And of course, several of their kids, they are from 19 kids and counting or 17 kids, however many kids they had. I think they were up to 19.
Yeah.
Several of their kids have subsequently left the faith and don't have a lot of communication with their parents. And they talk about, in this documentary, kind of the brainwashing and things like that they experienced. Well, the people who made that documentary, Shiny Happy People, want to do a Ruby Frankie documentary in kind of a little bit of the same style and same genre of Shiny Happy People. Now, the reason that I know this is because they reached out to Kurt Frankum.
Oh.
And they did an interview with Kurt Frankum because they want to have somebody in their documentary that is an active member of the church who can look at or make commentary on the Ruby Frankie situation and say, yeah, that's not what the mainstream Mormon church believes. We are horrified by that. I'm sure they have reached out to many people who maybe don't have favorable things to say about the church. I don't know. But I thought that was very, very interesting that kind of a documentary is in the works. And we'll see if Kurt participates in that and what his take on it is. Second, real quick update in Mormons behaving badly. Chad Daybell. I just really can't get enough of that Daybell story. Anyway, here's what's really interesting this week. His house is for sale. So if you recall, if you followed the trial at all, the bodies of those two children were found on his property. And John Pryor, his lawyer, has actually owned his house since 2021 because that's one of the ways that he paid for the defense. But I guess until he got convicted, John Pryor couldn't really put it on the market. So it's on the market right now. It's a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom house. I believe it sits on a couple of acres, if I recall correctly. But here is the most interesting part of how it is listed on the multiple listing service. It says, this is a stigmatized property. All requests to show must be vetted through the listing agent to be certain the buyer is genuine and aware of the trauma involved with the home. No curiosity seekers will be allowed access to the home and or grounds. Yeah. So all of you true crime fans who want to go see the house, you have to be a legit buyer. And I would just think whoever would buy that house, it just needs, even though it doesn't, Tammy died in the house, presumably. I think the whole thing just needs to be raised. They just need to plow it down, redevelop it, do something with it. It's going to be a hard property to sell as is. You got to have some cash to dump into it because of they're not wrong when they say it's a stigmatized house.
Bad associations.
Bad associations. So, okay, well, enough of that. As you know from listening to our blog, now is the time for favorite things. And so I invited you to bring a favorite thing tonight. But before you bring and ironically enough, the favorite thing that you brought ties into Postum. So I'm going to get out your favorite thing because I have it here in the cooler because it had to be chilled. and you can tell the listeners about your favorite thing, and then we will test drive your favorite thing. So explain to the listeners what your favorite thing is.
So this is the International Delight Cold Foam Creamer. It kind of looks like a whipped cream canister. And I don't know how many listeners have gone to Starbucks and seen the cold foam, because
I don't even know what cold foam is.
So it's kind of like whipped cream, but instead it just sits on top of the latte or whatever. Okay. I've never actually had it, but I've been curious about it. And I drink a different warm drink that I shall not mention because we are sponsored by Postum.
Exactly. But you're going to have some Postum tonight.
Yes, but I have been trying different creamers. And so I thought I would try this, and it is lactose free, which is important to me. And perfect. I just really love it. It makes it sweet, and it makes it feel kind of special because it's like the
okay. So I'm excited to try this. So I tell all my friends when they come over to do a taffy edition, I said, okay, you have to drink Postum with me because I am trying out all sorts of different Postum concoctions. And so I ask you, do you want your Postum cold or warm? And you said, I want cold Postum. And I said, perfect. So I put them in these mason jars tonight, mixed up my little Postum. And you were like, oh, I lived in the South. I'm used to drinking out of a mason jar. Jars. Let me explain to you what is in the mason jar before we mix it up. So I have the chocolate Postum here, or the cocoa Postum. You can see how much water I have in there. I probably have about 1.5 cups of water, and I put in about a teaspoon of the chocolate Postum. Now, I just made this up. I have no idea how it's going to taste. I then put in a packet of sweetener with stevia because, again, I'm trying to make this somewhat low calorie. I don't want this to be all sugar. And then I threw in a teaspoon of almond extract. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take the lids off here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to shake it. You shake it. And I'm going to add some ice. I've got some little nugget ice here. So we're going to add nugget ice to each of these drinks so that we can have a cold one. And then I will let you put the cold foam on top. And then we will just do a little taste test here and see what we think about this.
Hold it up. I don't think I can do both at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah, it just comes out.
Oh, okay. I will show the listeners. So this is how it comes out. It's not puffy like a regular whipped cream is. Okay. And so how many calories does that thing have? Let's just talk about that.
20 per 2 tablespoons.
Oh, and that's probably maybe a little more than 2 tablespoons.
Yeah, I think it might be 4 tablespoons.
Okay. Cheers. Let's try this. I'm hoping it's kind of almond joy-ish. Oh, that's yummy.
It's really good.
That is really good.
It's really good with the almond.
Oh, not only is it good with the almond, I love the cold foam on top. Where did you get that cold foam? I'm going to need that in my life.
I got it at Albertsons.
Okay.
And they had some other flavors. I got sweet and creamy.
Okay.
And there was a French vanilla, and then I forget the other one.
Okay.
The other one was a little more unique, but I can't remember what specifically it was.
Holy cow. I thought I liked the one that I did with Ariane that was the cake batter flavor. Oh, man, I like this even better. Really this is really good. That cold foam is just, I
really like it. I have put it on soda as well because I like a dressed up soda. And I can't do a lot of creamers because of the lactose. But this brand, International Delight, does not have lactose.
Okay. So. All right. Postum, thank you very much for being our sponsor. And Lauren, thank you for giving us a new way to drink. Oh, it's a great combination. Holy cow. I don't want to finish the show. I just want to sit here and drink my Postum. Okay. Well, I do have a favorite thing tonight that I am going to share. So I am wearing, you can't see it because you can only see the top half of me. This is a dress, and I bought this dress at Costco, and here's a picture of it. I'll hold up a picture of it. It's called a tech dress, and it's a really lightweight material. And I was at Costco the other day and I saw it, and I bought it in black and I bought it in blue. And then tonight I went back and bought it in this brownish, purplish cover because I have to tell you, this is seriously the most comfortable dress I have in my closet. I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to wear anything else this summer because it's super lightweight. The material is super lightweight. The other thing that I loved about it is it didn't have super long sleeves, but it has enough to cover my garments, and it goes down to about my mid-knee, and I'm 5'3". So if you're a little taller than me, you can probably still get away with it, but it is seriously the most comfortable dress. It's called, like I said, just a high tech. It's just a tech dress made out of that really kind of lightweight. You can throw it in, you can wad it up and it's not going to wrinkle. You can throw it in your suitcase and you're not taking up a lot of space. So it's seriously my favorite thing. If they had it in 10 colors, I'd buy 10 of them.
It was sad because I went to Costco right after you did, and I did not know. And so
okay, well, you will have to go back because they like I said, so comfy, and they were $20. It was $19.99, so completely reasonable.
Like dresses better in the summer.
I do too. It's cooler, and this thing it's not restricting around my waist, really nice. And it's super breathable. So that's my favorite thing tonight. All right. Well, I think that wraps our show up for us. Do you want to stick around for our Patreon episode?
Sure, I'd love to.
Okay. In our Patreon episode, I'm just going to tease it. There is a new article out with an interview with the filmmaker T.C. Christensen, and we're going to talk about that in our Patreon segment. So if you are interested in listening to our Patreon segment, please join Patreon and be a subscriber of the supporter of the show. For a couple bucks a month, you will get that extra content. You also get early access. These episodes are released on Patreon before they're released on all of the other podcast formats, so you get some early access. As always, if you want to reach out, you can get on your little computer and type in contact@thisweekinmormons.com. We will take any comments you have. In fact, Matt and Melissa love the mailbag. They love to open the mailbag and read what people have written. We're on all the platforms. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. I still don't know if anybody's really running our X account, but Twin Sisters has their own Instagram page. And so the favorite things that Lauren and I shared tonight, I will have pictures of those. Unfortunately, I can't do a link to the Costco dress because I went to see if it was available online.
They don't have it on
It's not available online. You know how sometimes Costco has stuff online that they don't have at the store, and likewise, they have stuff at the store that they don't have online. But I'll put a picture of it up there so you can at least know what you're looking for when you go into your Costco. All right. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I've loved having you here. You've been a wonderful guest and appreciate you coming.